Hi, Mariam. Thank you so much for joining us. Mariam Abou Ghazi is an anthropologist, is a game designer, is a writer who is collaborating with us on SHASN AZADI as the writer for the Egyptian Revolution Deck 2011. I met Mariam through a friend, and it's been wonderful talking to her, learning from experiences, and um, and understanding what she does and why she does what she does. I just wanted everyone to have a sneak peek into Mariam's beautiful mind and understand and be enriched the same way we have been enriched by working with her. Hi, Mariam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Zain. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure working with you, and I played a few rounds of the game, and it was amazing. So I'm really, really excited about working with you.
That's amazing. So I'm going to jump straight into it. Uh, so the Egyptian Revolution 2011 is a very, very recent memory. As an author, as a storyteller, why do you think is it important for us to talk about what happened, and what is it that we, as people from watching from around the world, should learn from what happened in 2011?
I think it's very interesting to talk about it today because exactly because it's a recent memory, and because there are people who are alive that remember things, and I think back in like 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago, we only heard about things from the victorious, um, which in that case is not revolutionaries, sadly. And therefore, it's very difficult for us to reconstruct stories because what's left from the history is what the victorious wrote or left us to see. So therefore, I think it's now today we have the technology and we have the knowledge and we have the know-how to document things and document different narratives. It's not only like it's not that there's one true narrative, but at least
Mhm,
have a multitude of narratives where someone like 100 years from now can look at it and see a fuller story of what
mhm,
happened. But also, I think because it's very recent and because we're living in the aftermath of a very, very happy dream that turned into a more grim, nightmarish scenario, we see firsthand how the regime is trying to rewrite the history of what happened
mhm,
in ways that are deforming what happened completely or completely erasing histories and stories and narratives bit by bit in different ways. So it feels also like we kind of remember we lived through this. This was an important experience for us, and therefore we need to find ways to document our stories because there is a force and a machine that is just erasing everything
mhm.
and rebuilding a whole new narrative about something that actually was very, very recent, and yet somehow they managed so fast to disrupt the memories in our head about it.
Yeah, and I really resonate with what you say. The stories are also a time capsule of our time. It's a means of recording what happened from your personal perspective, and that's a privilege. While it's also a wound. It's also a traumatic memory. It's also a privilege that the rest of us have to be able to talk to someone who has lived through all of this firsthand. Uh, but I want to talk about how that affects your work as an anthropologist. So, could you tell us more about your work as an anthropologist and how, as someone who's lived through the very experience you are working on, how does it affect the balance between academic and personal?
Well, as an anthropologist, I've never been really an academic.
Hmm.
I work a lot in research, and I really love research. It's one of the things, like game design, I feel like it's a treasure hunt. It's you look for things and you try to solve something, and it excites me. But I rarely work in an academic environment. Um, and I think I graduated from university in 2012. So in 2011, I was in my last year as a student, and I was part of what's happening. And I was studying anthropology, which is, I think I was very lucky in that sense because it gave me tools that I didn't. I wouldn't have otherwise. And very quickly I saw that I I like stories and I like collecting stories, and I see how memory is changing, and I started using these tools to document things and to rewrite things and create narratives. So I guess that's how things collided in a way between my interest as a researcher also and my passion about an event that I went through and was very, very important and still very important in my life today, and affects it until today in so many ways. Um, so I guess I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No,
Maybe you can.
that's very
Okay.
insightful. So building upon on that, uh, would it be fair to say that that you and your friends and a lot of people in the revolution didn't end up getting what they were fighting for? And if that is true, where do you see the Egyptian politics or Egyptian dialogue going in the next 10 to 15 years?
That's a very depressing question. I think no. The answer is no. I don't think. I think, or yes, I think most of us didn't get what we were looking for. I think there was a much bigger dream, and we stand today in a very oppressive environment. Some may argue even more oppressive than the state the country was in before 2011. Um, and it's a very, I think this in itself is a very difficult and heavy, but also educational experience. Somehow, I think people peak at some point and they keep on saying, like, I think we peaked in 2011, and then I was 21, and then life goes downhill from there. And it's very sad. It's a very sad way to think about it. So standing here 10 years later, I am not sure uh, a dialogue can be even created. Like there are many people in prison and for very unrealistic accusations, and those who aren't in prison, many of them are just leaving the country, and then those of us who are still here are just here. And
Yeah.
so it's, but also having said that, I think we also have something that we carried, and we standing today in 2021, I wouldn't take it back. And I think this is an experience of a lifetime that I lived through, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't not participate because it's heavy today, or I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
not be part of that. I think it was, again, I think I peaked at 21, but sad, but good, I guess. Some people don't get to experience that at all in their lifetime. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was in 2012, India was going through its own upheaval of sorts. It wasn't as major as as uh, as what happened in Egypt, and but similarly, the outcome of the upheaval wasn't positive. Now have a prime minister who we are worse off with for in every possible way. Um, but I remember when two of my co-founders and friends, Khushbu Ranka and Vinay Shukla, were making a film about that moment in politics, and they shot for 2.5, 3 years, and at some point they had to stop. And I remember them telling me very clearly, telling me that the thing about documenting history or living through history is that you don't have the very hardline start and stop points the way you have in your history books or documentary films. You are living through the history. So maybe 2011 was chapter one in a much larger saga, which ends better for all of us.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, if anything, I realized that it can be happening in only one country. For things to actually change, I think there need to be a change across the, the globe in a way,
Yeah.
because also Western powers have power over the South, and therefore change not necessarily is something they want, and if
Yeah.
they don't want it, then it won't happen, and then it's the egg or the chicken kind of thing.
Yeah.
It has to happen everywhere, and I think there are seeds for that everywhere in a way. uh, Maybe in some ways COVID kind of changed that a little, but also I don't think necessarily.
Yeah.
So yes, like today I am hopeful, but I think it needs to be more collective and global. It can't be just one place. It has to be, and we've seen waves coming in and out of every country. And for instance, in the Middle East, like in the Arab world, like few years ago Lebanon, and then Sudan, and then Algeria, and then like it's not it started, and I don't think it's gonna end anytime soon. And I think it's just chapters, and 2011 turned into now 2021 into something very different, but I don't think it's completely stagnant in a way. I think it will change. I hope it will, at least.
Yeah, it's very interesting to uh, to see how international geopolitical dominoes fall and the ripple effects they create. Yeah, and sometimes it just feels like so much is out of the control of the very people fighting for self determination. But I just want to do a shift of subject matter. This is heavy. This is painful. Let's jump to games. That's another thing that you love doing. You love making games for all kinds of audiences. Why games, and what are the strengths according to you of the medium of telling stories through games, and simultaneously what are the weaknesses?
Okay, games. I love games. So this is how it all started. Like I love playing games. I'm sadly an only child, so I wasn't able to play board games at home all the time. So I got like really obsessed about board games. And now I try to play board games. Like I found all ways to play games. I play games on my phone, on my laptop, and I have like a huge library of board games that I play as often as I can. And I think back to kind of what I do as an anthropologist, and I was telling you, I not necessarily, I use these tools to try to get people to know about things, but not necessarily in an academic way, because I don't think we all know that no one reads like academic articles. They can, but it's just like no, nobody like. I don't. If I don't have to, I won't read them. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's always nice to have different mediums and expand as much as possible to say the same thing. Maybe say it in a that's we're good at, or a podcast, or a film, or a game. And I think people receive information through different ways and interact with information very differently. And I think games, in a way, gives you this landscape where you can. It's a between I have a cat, sorry. I think it's something between the reality and imagination, and it gives you this power to navigate that, and gives you the power to expand your thoughts and your ideas and build on them, and also try things that you wouldn't try in real life. Because, for instance, in a game, you won't kill someone else, but in real life, but in a game you can. And it gives you this magic. It's this space between magic and reality, and I think it's a very nice space to actually talk about things that are heavy and very difficult to talk about in other mediums, but in a game it gives you the space to them in a very, very different way.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and I completely agree with you, and that's why I make games. I feel that you can create these interactive stories where the storyteller and the listener are crafting the experience together, as opposed to it being a one-way street. And that makes it super exciting for me as a storyteller.
Okay.
What are your favorite games? Tabletop, digital, whatever. What if you were to recommend games that someone should play? What would you recommend?
Okay, so my favorite game that I've been playing for the past couple of years is Pandemic Legacy, and I think it has to do with the fact that I was fascinated when I got introduced to this world of cooperative games that you can play together, not against each other, and yet have fun. But then most of them are too easy after a while. Like we can't play them over and over and over again because you kind of crack the mechanic. But something about the legacy part of Pandemic is just was fascinating. It's a whole story, but then obviously you need to have people that are committed to play for a year or something. But I think it's really worth having, and I kept on recommending it for a lot of friends during the pandemic because I think it was perfect to not really thematically that works, but also the fact that we're in the same place with the same people, at least we can actually commit to play the game. So that's one. I think that's one of my favorite games these days. I got Twilight Struggle. It's also a board game. It's a two-player board, and I'm really fascinated by it these days. So I'm now really into Twilight Struggle. I started by downloading it on my laptop and
Mhm.
playing it online, and then I got the board game, and I think it's worth trying. But both are very long strategy games.
Yeah, yeah, I love both those games too. And it's interesting how all the themes of games you like hit so close to home. You're working on SHASN AZADI with us. You have Pandemic. You have the game about the Cold War, Twilight Struggle, and it's basically all the themes that are very, very close to home that are really, really heavy themes, and that seems to be something that seems to be a pattern across the games you like.
Yes. I think so, yeah. But well, but I also like silly games, but or like less heavy games. But also, like one of the games that I like these days is Splendor, and I think I like it because it's like super easy to explain, but also it has a lot of some strategy, and mostly because I always win. But but also not it's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes I want to not win so people like to play with me. I feel like the sometimes I try not to win because I don't want to people to stop wanting to play with me Splendor.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But but it's only like Shazam when I played it like last week I lost. I was like the last, but well they ganged up on me I think.
Yeah, reserving everything you're going for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Um, what are your favorite media pieces? Not necessarily games that talk about revolutions and uprisings.
That's a very like I don't know. That's a very difficult question to think about. But now I'm reading a book called The Return. It's about Libya, and I think it's a great book, but also somehow it's very close to home. Even though it's about a different revolution which brings me back to the whole like it's all the same kind of revolution in a way as well.
Mhm.
So this is what I'm reading right now. So this is the first thing that comes to mind. It's a book by Hisham Motor. He's a Libyan writer who lives in the UK, and it's about his father who was arrested under Qaddafi, and yeah, but it's a very nice autobiography, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to put all the recommendations that Mariam's giving in the description below. Is there anything you would like to share with your audience? There's a more than 1,000 people who will be receiving a copy of the deck you are writing for us, or the campaign you're writing for us. Is there anything that you would like to say to them?
Well, I would like to tell them to enjoy playing the game on the one hand, but also I hope they learn a thing or two about Egypt and about the Egyptian Revolution, because I think at this point, I feel one of the things that can come out of this is other people learning from it, and other people trying to understand this more. And so maybe in a few years we'll all go through it again together, I guess.
Yes, let's hope the game starts a conversation in places where it wouldn't otherwise have happened.
Yes,
Awesome.
I hope so.
Yeah. So that was Mariam Abou Ghazi. I'm sorry if I'm not getting that right.
No, you
Um,
are.
uh, she's the campaign author for the Egyptian 2011 campaign for SHASN AZADI. Thank you so much, Mariam. If you want to get a hand on the game, it's live right now on our Kickstarter page. So just head on over to buyshasn.com or Google SHASN AZADI. Thank you so much, Mariam. It was so
Thank you so
wonderful
much,
talking to you.
Zain. Thank you so much.